Oh no, the Baltimore Ravens and John Harbaugh have parted ways. What? Did not see that coming. And we got a number of other coaching things to talk about as the head coaching carousel continues to turn. Y'all know we going to talk about it. Break it all down, but you got to hit the music first.
Welcome to your number one spot for all NFL news and content, NFL Central.
What's going on, NFL fans, and welcome back into another episode of NFL Central, your number one spot for everything NFL. I'm your host here, Bobby, and I'm bringing you the latest around the NFL. So whatever team you root for, you can come right here to the spot and talk football just the way we like to talk football. But hey, we got some news coming from Adam Schefter not too long ago saying that the Baltimore Ravens have fired John Harbaugh, and he is no longer the coach for the Baltimore Ravens. John Harbaugh, just for context, coached 18 seasons, had 180 and 113 record, was 13 and 11 in the postseason, and was a Super Bowl champion. And man, that is crazy. But it was kind of expected in a way, especially with all the noise that was surrounding Baltimore this season. The way that they started, had a 1-5 record, and the way that the season ended with another game that just did not go in John Harbaugh's favor. You remember a couple years ago, Xavier Flower fumbling. You remember Mark Andrews dropping the pass, and just the other night, the last game of this NFL season, we witnessed the kicker miss the kick and caused the Baltimore Ravens to miss an opportunity out on a chance at the playoffs. Damn. But it's the life of the NFL. There's some other coaches' names who might be thrown to this as we continue to go through these weeks in the playoffs. But for John Harbaugh, look, I respect him. But I think that as things continue to pile up over the last few years, and having a two-time MVP in Lamar Jackson, and having a really outstanding offense, and having a solid defense for the last few years with Lamar Jackson and company, it was inevitable that John Harbaugh was going to have a few tough discussions with the Baltimore Ravens organizations and the guys that are in charge. And now we point and look at Lamar Jackson. We got to. We point and look at Lamar Jackson. This is on your watch, my guy. This is on your watch. Did you go out there and win 2 MVPs? Absolutely. Did you have opportunities in the playoffs? Absolutely. Did you come to the podium after your last game versus the Pittsburgh Steelers and not really lean into the idea of retaining your head coach? Yes, and rightfully so. I didn't really find too much wrong with your comments at the end of the game, being stunned and not necessarily thinking about the future. But there is another side to that, Lamar Jackson. You could have backed your head coach up. You could have. But I respect everything that Lamar Jackson said. That's how he feels. That's how he feels. But now when another head coach come in here, depending on who that is, we got to see what you really going to do with this. Because there's been a number of things that happened on your watch that caused John Harbaugh to lose his job. John Harbaugh holds some weight in this equation. Do not get me wrong. But you do as well, Lamar Jackson, hold some weight when it comes to a new head coach and a new voice entering the locker room now. Now, we can look at John Harbaugh, and I could very well understand when people say, hey, but what about the offensive coordinator when you had Greg Roman, when you had Todd Monken, and there was some, pushback or the lack of a run game when you know who you had in your backfield the last few years? There is some truth to that. But then it still circled back to who has to lead the charge. who has to be at their best. That is John Harbaugh. But let's not forget about Lamar Jackson either. So it is what it is. These things typically happen around the league, no matter how long you're in the league. We remember Andy Reid being with the Eagles forever and then moving on to Kansas City. And now we're hearing similar discussions that were surrounded about John Harbaugh, now being surrounded by Mike Tomlin, to where just a couple weeks ago, the fans were booing Renegade and yelling, "Fire Mike Tomlin." So it's just a part of the business. But I will go back and say it one last time. John Harbaugh for the Baltimore Ravens had his hand in the downfall of the Baltimore Ravens the last few seasons. But let's not forget Lamar Jackson, the two-time MVP, who had to show up in certain situations as well and hold his teammates accountable as well, along with this head coach. Let's not forget Lamar Jackson. New voice coming in the building. The clock is on. But hey, just before we move on and talk about some other things that went on around the NFL, now it's being reported that from Adam Schefter that the New York Giants are the favorites to land head coach John Harbaugh. Me personally, I really like it. You get if John Harbaugh does become the head coach of the New York Giants, you have a talented front four defensively. You have a young quarterback in Jackson Dart. You have a good running back in Cam Scatterboot. You already have a number one wide receiver in Malik Neighbors. So there is some bones right there to kind of continue to build this body and build up this organization. Now, when it comes to the GM over there with the New York Giants, that is going to have to be a decision or a relationship, I would say, that has to work and make sure that they are making the best decisions possible for the city of New York and Giants fans, because they pissed off over there. And can you blame them? No, you can't blame them. But hey, he got something to work with if that is the option. You have some other options around the league. I don't necessarily know if you want to build from the ground up with the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't necessarily know about that. How do you feel about the Tennessee Titans job? John Harbaugh, I think that's something decent. John Harbaugh, how do you feel about Atlanta? You got a veteran quarterback in Kirk Cousins. You got one of the best running backs in, arguably number one. I will give it to Christian McCaffrey this season, but John Robinson is not that far off from that. Kyle Pitts. You got two young stud pass rushers that they just drafted. You got a nice safety that they also picked up in Billy Bowman. They got some nice young pieces over there. They got the offensive line is already intact. So you got some bones to work with that as well. I can't wait to see what happens with it, y'all. I cannot wait to see where John Harbaugh ends up. And then in other news, former head coach Jason Garrett is interviewing for the Titans job Friday. Okay, I'm not too mad at that. I think Jason Garrett did a decent job down there in Dallas. He has spent this time as an analyst over the last few years, and I think that could potentially be something right there. And we'll see where that all falls. And the Giants, they got a number of moves to make, and we'll see. More news. More news. The Detroit Lions are parting ways with John Morton, who was the offensive coordinator for them this season after the departure of Ben Johnson, who left for Chicago. Now, this is where I get a little petty to Detroit Lions fans. This is where I'm going to get a little bit petty with Detroit Lions fans. Detroit Lions fans, y'all told me that John Morton was better than Ben Johnson. Detroit Lions fans, y'all told me that John Morton, he gonna pick up where he left off, and he was the architecture of the offense that was in Detroit. That's just me being a little petty. But hey, I still think that Dan Campbell called plays well when he took over play calling. But ultimately, I think Dan Campbell just wants to be the quote-unquote CEO of the offense and allow a guy to take over. Some names that may be notable, maybe a Cliff Kingsbury. He departed ways in Washington, which we'll get to shortly. But hey, Detroit Lion fans, Dan Campbell, you all have to do your due diligence. John Morton did not understand the task at hand. And I did have a little bit of reservation about how Dan Campbell called plays as well. So we will be keeping our eyes on that type of situation. There will be a number of candidates out there and available for the Detroit Lions. So we just going to play it closely. But one thing that I really, really want to harp on is the departure of Cliff Kingsbury from the Washington Commanders. Already, bro? Cliff Kingsbury, how are you out of a job or mutually agreed to part ways from the Commanders already? This does not bode well for Jaden Daniels. Dan Quinn, you cannot screw this up. You cannot screw this up, because if you do not get the correct offensive coordinator in there for Jaden Daniels, his career that was on an upward trajectory and took a dip this season, will it continue to dip or will it plateau? As talented as the kid is, we want to continue to see the ascension of a young talent like Jaden Daniels. Dan Quinn, you cannot screw this offensive coordinator, head, search, whatever it is. You cannot screw it up. Do not screw it up. It don't make sense, bro. It just doesn't make sense. But hey, there's a number of things going on in the NFL world, man. We're very, very excited to discuss it and talk about it. And it's right before the playoffs. This is the best time of the NFL. This is the best time of the NFL. I hope you all are enjoying having some excitement so we can all enjoy it together. This is great news. These guys are going to get jobs. Mostly everybody that's on the market will bounce back in some way, form, or fashion. Whether that's in the NFL or some guys might drop off into the college ranks. So, yes, I'm excited to see how these things transpire, simply because when we look at all these things, they either make teams better, sometimes they don't help teams at all. And it just opens up a number of different topics to go out there and discuss as football fans to see, hey, what if John Harbaugh becomes the coach of the New York Giants? What if Cliff Kingsbury starts to interview and goes over there and coach Cam Ward? What if Kevin Stefanski goes out there and becomes the head coach of the Tennessee Titans or wants to go through a rebuild with the Oakland Raiders? It's all interesting to me. I love this type of stuff, and I'm hoping y'all are loving it and enjoying it just as much as I am. But hey, just want to drop a quick hitter on y'all, man. More to come tomorrow with another daily episode breaking down as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. But hey, that is it for me today, man. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well, man. I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all always love football, and y'all already know I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.